Hello everyone, welcome to the Tech and Auto Show. I'm your host Manav Sinha and it is so good to see all of you lovely people once again. In case you're new here, welcome. You've just tuned into the Tech and Auto Show. This is your one-stop solution for port technology as well as automobiles at one place, which basically means why should you be watching two shows when you can watch one? This one. Now, just like every time, there's a lot of action that we have to cover, so let's kick things off by first showing you a glimpse of what you can expect over the course of the next half an hour. This week, we'll be telling you all about the OnePlus Nord 2 as they test it out to its limits. Then, we'll also be taking you for a ride on the Honda CB650R, an exclusive review of Honda's middleweight superbike. That's not it, we'll also be making you safer on the internet once again by talking about privacy issues like zero-click attacks. So there you have it, all of that action will be coming your way and a little bit more in this episode. And yes, in case you've noticed, this is the 2021 Mercedes-Benz GLA that is giving us company today for this episode. Now we're going to start off with the world of technology, and in that world, whenever OnePlus releases a new phone, it's something to talk about. Well, turns out they've released a new phone called the OnePlus Nord 2, and now it's time to talk about it, as up next Vishal is telling you his review of the OnePlus Nord 2.
The search for the true north is continuing at an even faster pace this year. We just saw the OnePlus Nord CE 5G launched a while ago, and not soon after, we now have the OnePlus Nord 2 5G. This makes it 3 phones now in the OnePlus Nord series in India: the OnePlus Nord from last year, the OnePlus Nord CE, and now the OnePlus Nord 2. This makes it a very capable troika, particularly the fact that the OnePlus Nord from last year was succeeded by the OnePlus Nord CE at relatively similar price points, whereas the OnePlus Nord 2 is slightly grown up. Does it really make sense to spend that little bit extra and get something which is powered by the MediaTek Dimensity 1200 AI chip, which in my opinion could just be the secret ingredient? There are 3 configurations that you will be able to choose from. Prices start around Rs 27,999 for the 6GB RAM and the 128GB storage option. The mid-spec one, which is 8GB of RAM and 128GB storage, gets you for around Rs 29,999, while the highest spec OnePlus Nord 2 phone will cost you 34,999 for 12GB of RAM and 256GB storage. Quite rapidly, the 25,000 to 35,000 rupee price band for Android phones is fast becoming the MediaTek monopoly. And why not, considering the sort of performance and experience that the Dimensity 1200 has delivered in phones that we've tested so far. And in the case of the OnePlus Nord 2, it is a further evolution into the MediaTek Dimensity 1200 AI, where the AI component is bringing the hardware and the software even closer together. OnePlus hasn't mucked around with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 7 series chips. No disrespect there, but then they would have had to counter a perhaps tough perception about performance and longevity. No surprise then that never once did I notice the Dimensity 1200 AI processor struggling to keep up. Or did it heat up as it handled tasks, or any stutters with app loading or app switching. What also helps is that the OnePlus Oxygen OS continues to be the slickest Android customization, if not the slickest, across all Android phones. The other big update is that the Nord 2 5G brings Warp Charge fast charging 65. This is up from Warp Charge 30T that the OnePlus Nord had. OnePlus clearly lists Oxygen OS 11.3 as based on Android 11 and ColorOS 11.3, the latter being the software that is found on Oppo's Android phones. The syncing of synergy should see more of this happen in the coming months across OnePlus phones as software development becomes centralized. There may be changes to how OnePlus phones look and feel on the software side of things at some point, but then there aren't any glaring overhauls visible right now. We saw tremendous value with the OnePlus Nord last year, also because it was bringing a proposition at a price which wasn't really getting delivered by a lot of other phones. This year the OnePlus Nord 2 succeeds, everything is better, but it's not really that sort of an exciting revolution as the OnePlus Nord was. It's not the Nord 2's fault though, because we've become used to it. What the Nord 2 does is it is incrementally better in some respects and significantly better in other respects. So for a phone, the OnePlus Nord, which was already excellent in a lot of regards, You now have a successor which is genuinely a successor. It's extremely powerful to the extent that it can pretty much stand up to more expensive Android flagship phones and all the other ingredients that you would expect in a OnePlus smartphone, such as capable battery life, a good display, and well, a clean operating system. You get all of that with a very consistent camera as well. So you're paying that a little bit more compared to last year, but you're definitely getting a lot more.
So there you have it, that was the OnePlus Nord 2. But now let's move on to the world of automobiles, and in that world the Honda CB650R is a middleweight street naked motorcycle offering from Honda, and well, I'm happy to inform that we are the first ones ever to ride that motorcycle in India. Well, without any further ado, check out our exclusive review of the Honda CB650R. So the weather today is great, isn't it? It's raining like cats and dogs today. And in weathers like these, if you have the right kind of motorcycle, well, your experience can be really good. Seems like I have the perfect one today. This is the Honda CB650R. It's a street naked motorcycle, as you can clearly see, and what it has is an inline 4-cylinder engine and the practicality of a street naked design. Is it as fun as I'm making it out? Well, take a look. Now let's start off with the design of the CB650R, and I quite like how the motorcycle looks. One of the things that I really like are these exhaust header pipes, which are fully visible in all their glory. They're not very clean right now because of the weather that is, as you can see around me, but they have a golden finish and they look really nice when, of course, they're not as dirty as they are right now. But dirty or not, the CBR650R has a lot of character in its design, and if you want to stand out of the crowd, this one will help you do that with ease. The new retro headlight is stunning to look at, and these heavy big tank shrouds that you see here are not only for looks, as they are actual air intakes. I also like the contrast wheels, which give the bike a sporty look, and of course the bike is quite compact too. And as a result, this will not be intimidating for riders who will be riding a bike this powerful for the first time. Now let's talk about the riding ergonomics, and for that I'm going to get on top of the motorcycle so you can get a good idea of how it fits me. For reference, I'm 5'10", and you can see I can plant both my feet firmly onto the ground. The riding ergonomics are a lot more relaxed as compared to the CBR650R. Of course, the handlebar is wider and taller. So all in all, it's a relaxed motorcycle to ride, and also this new handlebar gives you a lot more leverage to slice through city traffic. And the good bits continue to the back as well, because the pillion seat is actually usable. But the design, well, it's not perfect. Well, these exposed exhaust header pipes are so pretty to look at, you need to be careful with them as there is no bash plate protecting them. Don't get me wrong, the ground clearance is not an issue at all, but just don't go off-roading or trail hunting with this motorcycle. Also, while you're at it, a radiator guard must be the very first accessory that you put on it. And speaking of things to get used to, well, the left switch cluster is something that needs to be learned. As is the case with all premium Honda bikes, the indicator switch and the horn button placement is switched, and in the CB650R particularly, the traction control system, which is a great addition on the bike by the way, especially in a weather like this, is switched on and off with this switch that can be easily mistaken for a headlight pass button. So just make a note of it. Now, as is the case with most Honda motorcycles, the engine is what is the highlight of this entire package, and this is a proper hooligan. It is powered by a 648cc inline 4-cylinder engine that makes 86 horsepower and 57.5 Newton-meters of torque. And this engine has a dual nature to itself. Below 6,500 RPM, the CB650R is a well-behaved motorcycle, making it great in city riding conditions. Post that mark, however, the motorcycle starts to scream and shout and is ready to push you through the air in an aggressive manner. There are some vibrations at the 6,500 RPM mark, so just make sure you don't stay there. The on-off throttle transition is also a bit jerky, but then again, the entire drivetrain is so refined and linear that you'll fall in love with it. And the motorcycle is basic, and that's not a bad thing at all. It has no riding modes, a rather simple but digital instrument cluster, and an old school cable operated accelerator which makes for a great connect with the experience. And this light clutch lever, refined drivetrain and the agility that comes with the relaxed riding posture and wide handlebar makes the motorcycle a lot of fun to ride. And there's great amount of grip and composure that even experienced riders will appreciate. So to sum it all up, I really enjoyed my time with the CB650R. The weather gods certainly helped, but all in all, it's a fun motorcycle to have for the money that you're spending. And yes, that brings us to the big question, the money. This is an expensive motorcycle, I'm not going to disagree with you, but as I said with the CBR650R review video, I have to mention the ownership experience of this bike. You see, usually the case is with Honda premium motorcycles is that they have a high initial cost, but their ownership and maintenance cost, well, it's one of the best in the country, if not the best that you can have with a premium bike. So you need to keep that in mind. The service, the parts availability, the accessories, everything is a much more relaxed experience as compared to other premium bike makers when it comes to owning a Honda big bike. But if price is not a concern for you, well, this is a really nice package. 4-cylinder madness in a middleweight compact machine. You know what you're getting. So if you're looking out for a new middleweight superbike, well, this is something that you should consider. Now here at the Tech and Auto Show, we not only talk about fancy gadgets like smartphones, laptops, smartwatches, but we also talk about some really important issues like privacy matters that you need to know about. One of those things is called zero-click attacks that has got the attention of a lot of people who are privacy focused on the internet. Well, we've got our in-house champion Shovik telling us all about it up next.
Over time, cyber attacks have increased manyfold in the level of sophistication that they come with. Now, on this note, one of the latest and the most sophisticated attacks are known to employ a tactic which is being referred to as zero-click. What does that really mean, and how severe can it be? Well, for starters, zero-click, as the name suggests, is literally that, in the sense that it does not require any click to be enforced. Typically, a cyber breach takes place when a user inadvertently clicks on a link, downloads a wrong attachment, or goes into a wrong website which has malicious tool loaded in it. These all require voluntary clicks from a user, and typically a hacker is then required to set out a plot where a user is directed into this malicious route. However, in case of these zero-click attacks, a hacker does not really need to redirect a user into such an elaborate trap. Instead, these attacks employ further tactics such as spear phishing and more advanced ways of reaching out to a user in order to install certain tools on their phones. Now, these tools or trojans or malware are of a specific kind and in cybersecurity parlance are referred to as spyware. These spyware can be targeted tracking tools which are not meant for mass surveillance but for targeting specific users, like the Pegasus attack which is being talked about right now. Now, these tools employ zero-click because they typically target individuals in places of power who may have a fair amount of knowledge in terms of cybersecurity and may therefore not be tricked into clicking on links which many other users or many other commonplace users might be tricked into. Zero-click on this note does not leave behind any tracks or any traces in terms of this being a malicious attack. in the sense that it might land up in your inbox as a valid attachment from a contact that you trust, such as an office email address of yours. Now, in such cases, a user is most likely going to be tempted into downloading the attachment if they are convinced that this has in fact reached from an official email address. During this entire process, a user does not require to take any steps or download any unverified links or sources, and this zero-click attack therefore enables itself in the background of a user's smartphone or a device which is being targeted. The more severe traces is that it does not leave behind any identifiers, in the sense that even pretty advanced users may not be able to immediately guess or understand that they are being tracked or their devices have been infected. Small identifiers, for instance devices heating up or calls getting disconnected or screens taking a lot of time to load, are things which sometimes come up in these highly specialized spyware which use these zero-click attack formulated ideas. But these are vague signals in the sense that they can be caused by a lot of other things which happen to a smartphone over time on a regular basis as well. As a result, cybersecurity advocates have over time stated how these attacks are one of the most sophisticated and therefore represent some of the biggest challenges in the cybersecurity world right now. Zero-click attacks are also not the most commonplace and obviously among the most sophisticated cyber attack tools in the world, which use some of the most deepest underlying zero-day hacks or zero-day flaws which are there in most commonly used software. Now, zero-day flaws are flaws which are not or have not been reported to the companies who have been promoting these apps, and these apps typically entail widely used software, for instance iMessages on Apple itself. Now, Apple as a company is generally quite serious about security, but even then there are certain flaws in the framework of most apps and most software in the world which have bugs that can be exploited, and it is these that these zero-click attacks exploit. In other sense, zero-click attacks exploit zero-day hacks to make sure that the world of cybersecurity may not have an immediate answer towards stopping the tool. So it is unlikely that when this zero-click attack is enforced, a user is most likely not going to have any sort of protection prior, even if they are cautious, even if they are careful, and even if they have an antivirus installed in their system.
Welcome back. You're watching the Tech and Auto Show and I'm your host Manav Sinha. And yes, this is the 2021 Mercedes-Benz GLA that is giving us company today for this episode. Now, before going for the short commercial break, as I mentioned, we not only cover fancy gadgets, but we also talk about important topics like privacy. Similarly, in the world of automobiles, we not only talk about fancy cars, but we also talk about the future of automobiles, technologies like autonomous driving technologies. And you'll be surprised, things like these are also there in the Indian market, as we found out in our special conversation with MG Interview. Watch it up next.
Welcome to yet another insightful conversation revolving around CASE. Now, if you are wondering what is CASE, it actually means connected, autonomous, shared, and electric mobility. And one company that has pioneered this in India is MG Motor. So to discuss it further, I have with me Mr. Rajiv Chhabha, who is the President and MD at MG Motor India. Mr. Chhabha, welcome and thanks for talking to News18.
Thank you.
In many ways, MG has pioneered CASE mobility in India. You have a vehicle that represents all the four genres. How important is CASE for MG?
I think this is one of our positioning planks or important part of our foundation. And this actually differentiates us, in my opinion. So when we were entering the market and we were deciding our launch strategy, it came out very clearly that we need to do things in a different way than the others, because it's a very competitive market, very unique market in India. It's difficult to penetrate. So to be on top of consumers' mind, we thought technology will play a big role. And so technology became our strong pillar apart from other three pillars of customer experience, diversity, and community. Very unique positioning, I would say. But on technology part, Hector, as you know, is the first connected car in the country. Then we launched second EV. And EV, I would argue that is the best EV in the country right now at that price point. And the third, Gloucester, is autonomous level 1 in that price category. You don't have those kind of features in that price range in our country. So, all three actually are unique in their own segments. And the fourth car, what we are going to launch, also would be unique, hopefully, and you all will find it very interesting.
MG is more or less invested in SUVs, be it the Hector, ZS, EV, or the Gloucester, and then the fourth product which you're talking about, the mass segment product. But you also have products like MG6, which we drove in China. What's the rationale behind going only towards the SUVs, if I may ask?
Yeah, so in fact, that's a pretty interesting question, Arjit. And as you know, in automotive industry, you decide 3-4 years before, before the actual launch, because it takes that kind of a time.
Right.
So even let's say we decided in 2016 time frame about the Hector car, and like this fourth product we decided almost 2.5 years back. So I think it will be fair to say that we looked at the global trend, that where the consumers are shifting to. Then we saw the gaps in the Indian market, and when you correlate that gap with the global trends, you could see that maybe the SUV market will have more upside and more opportunity in the country. And basis that, we went for SUVs. Despite COVID, despite all those kind of headwinds, SUV segment is the one segment which keeps growing.
Now, in my opinion, one thing that is stopping the EV boom in India is the charging infrastructure and the battery range, even though makers like MG are offering home-mounted AC chargers and wires along with it. What's MG doing in this space, particularly from the charging infrastructure and the battery of electric vehicle?
Arjit, I will slightly differ here. I think there are two issues. One is, rightly, as you pointed out, charging infrastructure.
Right.
Second is, do not have very good, compelling, competitive entries in EV. Okay. How many choices the consumers have right now? In India, it's a unique thing. If you recall the automatic transmission thing,
right.
On one hand, you could say that Indians wanted automatic vehicles, but the choices were less. The
right.
moment you have given them more choices, more and more guys are going for automatic variant, which makes sense given our traffic conditions. So on the charging side, coming back to your exact question, you may know that we were the first one who said we will give one charger, which is inclusive in the car pricing, and install it at our own cost, again, it's part of the same pricing, at consumers' home or office, wherever they prefer. So still we are doing that. So that takes care of 85% of your charging needs.
What is the differentiating factor that you have seen over the past couple of years that is pushing MG cars?
I think right from identifying the segment, then the product, the right features, the pricing, technology of that product, and then cost of ownership and resale price. Everything end to end is important. I'm happy to say that we knew these issues and we are able to implement it. As an example, what we have not discussed, but I'm sure you know it, that even cost of ownership, if you take Hector to any workshop and 70% of the repair bill of Hector is less than 3,000 rupees, which is equivalent to your small Maruti, I think. Okay. So service charges for 70% of my consumer is only 3,000 rupees. And the resale price is the highest, is the best in the segment. Still, it's 92%. So after 2 years of buying Hector, still you can sell at 92% of the old price what you paid. I think all these things put together, so far so good, I would say, and we are pretty happy with the journey.
Thank you for talking to News18.
Take care. Thank you very much. Right.
And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of the Tech and Auto Show. How did you find the show? Is there anything you have to say, anything you want us to cover, or simply want to have a conversation? Well, reach out to us on Twitter. We are more than happy to talk. If it's about technology, reach out to us at News18 Tech. If it's about automobiles, tweet out to us at News18 Auto. And remember, by logging on to News18.com, you can read more on both these industries, as well as all about the 2021 Mercedes-Benz GLA. With that, that's all for today. I'll catch you same time next week, only on CNN News 18.